Everywhere we go, everywhere we go, people wanna know who we are, So we tell them, beyond the barracks, mighty battle sisters. Welcome everybody to Battle Sisters Podcast, May 2024 podcast. I'm Nicole Romero, U.S. Navy veteran.
Hi, and I'm Linda Cater, Marine Corps veteran.
And today's episode is focused on the women in military history. May is Military Female Appreciation Month for the females in the military. We just wanted to come to you and present some really fantastic, interesting information on how all of that became possible for the female women to serve in our U.S. Armed Forces. And
the research was very interesting.
It sure was. Thank you for joining us, though. We are here on trying to show you how we served, as well as being female veterans, and how far everybody has come. And first, we would like to have a shout out to CMAC and the Dream Again Project for making this next episode of this podcast possible.
Thank you.
Throughout the history, women have been fighting along the military conflicts. But women would have to disguise themselves as men. Oh, my gosh.
Right.
Just to defend our country alongside with our fellow brothers in arms. It was not until around World War I that America actually started accepting women in the military. So with that being said, let's take a look at our history and how this unfolded to where we are today. And this is all information pulled from the USO.org articles. And what they have informed us, it's very interesting. Linda did some very good research on this. Over 200 years of service. The history of the women in the U.S. military. So there was a lady by the name of Margaret Corbin. She was the very first woman to receive a military pension. In 1776, Corbin dressed as a man and joined her husband in the Battle of Fort at the age of 25.
Wow.
That is so crazy.
She was determined.
Yeah, my God. Eventually, she was hit by enemy fire, which nearly severed her left arm. She was unable to use her left arm for the rest of her life. So she really gave up some selflessness to get in there and help.
Right.
But after she recovered, Corbin joined the Invalid Regiment at West Point, where she aided the wounded until she was formally discharged in 1783. In 1779, the Continental Congress, in recognition of her brave service, awarded her finally with a lifelong pension equivalent to half.
Right. To half, 50%
of the male combatants. Okay.
So because she was a woman, her benefit was 50% less.
Okay. A plaque at Fort Tryon Park in Manhattan hails her as the first woman to take a soldier's part of the war for liberty. My hat's off to you, Miss Corbin.
Yes.
Gosh. It was during the Civil War that women began to serve as nurses. I wonder if that was like during Pearl Harbor?
Civil War?
That wasn't during Pearl Harbor.
No. Yeah, that was Pearl Harbor was World War.
I'm thinking about the movie Pearl Harbor. All those awesome, pretty nurses.
The Civil War was when
like way
the
back
North
in
and the South.
Okay.
For slavery and.
Oh God. Okay. Excuse me there, ladies and gentlemen. I have to do some more history on this. But the nurses began, though, serving in the Civil War. And how that happened was, check this out. Now, this is very, very interesting to me because everybody knows the Red Cross.
Yes.
Everybody knows the Red Cross for being there in times of difficulty. Till this day, they're there for all the catastrophes that happen in our country.
Right.
And so this lady, Clara Barton, the founder of Red Cross, risked her life to bring supplies and support to soldiers on the field in the Civil War. I mean, she received a military pass that allowed her to actually travel onto the battlefield to take her medical supplies and aid the wounded soldiers.
So because she was a woman, they allowed her to go onto the battlefield because she was taking care of the injured.
Right.
So, which is a big thing, of course.
She drove her medical wagons.
Yes.
So yeah, you're right. That was that was like Little House on the Prairie days. What am I talking about? Okay. So she took her medical wagons out there, and at the age of 59, she founded the American Red Cross. In 1881 is when she actually founded the American Red Cross and led it to the next 23 years.
Amazing.
Now, World War I was the first time women were allowed to openly serve.
So they didn't have to pretend to be men anymore.
Gosh.
They didn't have to go in disguise and change their names.
I would love to see a movie made about that.
I know. Huh? World War I.
Like I would want them to actually portray the women dressing up as men. I think that'd be so interesting. It wasn't until 1901 where the U.S. Army Nurse Corps was formally established. This was during a time when women did not have the right to vote. During this time, there were more than 3,000 women deployed as nurses to British-operated hospitals in France near the front lines. So that was World War I.
Yes.
The Navy and the Army enlisted the women who mostly worked in supportive roles such as clerical, telephone, and radio operators. And that's what me and Linda did in the Marines and the Navy.
We're operators.
We
Radio.
were radiomen.
Yes.
That's so awesome to know that even back then, that was like one of the main roles. As a female,
Right.
we actually went into that role. What I joined when it was 1990. When did you join?
In 96.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I was a lot older. I think I was 26 when I joined.
I was. That's right. We
Yeah.
talked about this before. I was 17, going on 18. These positions were only limited during wartime, though. And then in World War II, is what really inspired all the branches, the military branches, the Navy, the Army, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force, to enlist women that did not limit service to wartime. The Army formed what's called the WASPs, the Women Air Force Service Pilots. The Army formed the Women's Auxiliary Corps, the WACs, which was later renamed and restructured to form Active Duty Women's Army Corps, WACs. The Navy, and I always used to get teased about waves.
Yeah.
When I joined, like a lot of the older sailors would be like, "Oh, so you're a wave," and I'm like, "We're gonna ride those waves. You're gonna."
Now you know where this.
I'm like, "What are you talking about?" The Navy formed the Women Accepted for Volunteer Emergency Service, WAVES. Marine Corps enlisted women in the Marine Corps Women's Reserve.
Only the reserves. So this was during World War II.
And the Coast Guard formed the Women's Reserve. What a trip.
So they couldn't still openly serve just for limited times where there was too many restrictions.
And this just is going to go into how awesomely forward females have actually, to this day, have just totally amazingly keep pushing forward and where we're at now.
So going all the way back to the Revolutionary War, women had to pretend to be men just to be able to serve, to protect our country. And then after that, when they're like, okay, yes, we do need you, World War I, and you could fill these positions because the men had to go overseas to battle. And then World War II, they were like, okay, but you can do reserves. Yeah. And we'll call you when we need you.
Okay. Yeah, and then they needed us to, be nurses, you know, and that poor lady got her whole arm blown off and then just, accepted 50% of the pay and So we've just come so far. We've just come so far.
We
It's
have.
so
We've had
great.
our heroes pave the way
Yes.
to where we are today.
In total, nearly 350,000 American women served in World War II. 432 of those women were killed in the line of duty in World War II, and 88 were taken as POWs. Wow, I can
Right.
only imagine. Army Colonel Ruby Bradley in the Army Nurse Corps was an Army Nurse Corps officer. She was a prisoner of Japan in World War II and one of the most decorated women in the United States military. Colonel Bradley Ruby was one of the most decorated women in the U.S. military history. My hat's off to her. As a veteran of World War II and the Korean War, she was the third woman in Army history to be promoted to the rank of colonel. Wow. She earned 34 medals for her service during World War II and the Korean War. 34
Yes.
medals!
So imagine at that time, she was exceptional because women were so limited.
Yeah, she must have been one smart girl.
Right?
She must have been so hard,
Yes.
really brave,
Yes.
really determined,
Right.
to keep pushing.
Yes.
And let's do this, you know?
Not letting,
Anything deter her.
Yes.
Like,
or stop her.
Can you
or
imagine how much
discourage her?
people, can you imagine, the men in there?
Yes.
That's not even, that
Right.
was, yeah. So we're not even going to point that out because, wow,
So for her accomplishments, just the fact,
Yes.
34 medals, but on top of that, because as a female, we see,
right.
a lot more that she had to actually endure based on compared to today's world.
Exactly.
Yes.
This just makes me feel I'm sorry to say, but we are humble here and we do talk about real stuff, but it makes me think about the MST situations back then.
Yes.
Military sexual trauma.
Honestly, you're right.
Because, if that's still really prevalent today,
Yes.
I can imagine back then. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
My hat's off to those women.
Were they really protected? Especially being in that environment and treated like second class. Women weren't able to vote until, when was it?
80, or not 80, but
Let me check my notes. Well, there was a time period.
wasn't it I should remember this. I know I had said something on that. It's just something to think about, though. I don't know, it just dawned on me right now, just reading this, that I really respect our females because, I love our brothers in arms. I do. Heck yeah. We couldn't get nothing done without the men. Come on.
Right.
But doing this history just really brings some clarity to me as a female veteran of what they actually had to go through. Because, we got so much of that PTSD, military sexual trauma going on now as female veterans, female active duty service members, and how far technology and the laws and everything are today. I just cannot imagine back then.
Right.
That must have been some turmoil back
Yes. That's true.
then. So,
Definitely.
3 years after the end of World War II, the Women Armed Services Integration Act was enacted. This allowed women to serve as permanent and regular members of the armed forces. So I have to remember that. 1948. Now that was, I think that was about Pearl
Korean.
Harbor.
That was right after. That was the next conflict.
Was
I believe.
it?
Right? The next conflict?
The
To the
act.
cameraman. our history buff.
Come on, history. Come on, Joseph. That act actually restricted the number of women, though. So it was only 2% of each branch.
Yes.
What's 2%?
So there was a limit So, okay, we'll let you join.
Dang, still.
We'll let you join as permanent. So I guess so you could start receiving, benefits and so forth. But we're going to max out at 2%. Whatever number there is for that branch, you cannot exceed 2% for females.
So it took
And it also limited how many women could be officers.
from 1776 all the way to 1948.
48. Yes.
And it was still, the restrictions were there.
Yes. So additionally, female service members could be automatically discharged.
If they became pregnant.
Yes.
And they were unable to command men or serve in combat positions.
So they were not.
I remember learning about that. Towards the end of the 20th century, the beginning of the 21st century, there were lots of firsts for women in the military. So
during the Vietnam War in 1967, President Johnson signs Public Law 90-130, and that removed the 2% limit.
okay.
So in 1967, removed the 2% limit. And in essence, this law provided equal opportunity in promotions for women in the armed forces.
That's when we started.
And the law also opened up promotions for women, including in the general and flag ranks. So a general and flag rank refers to the officers. Before, they were limited to how high they could go. So
Promotion-wise,
yes.
telling men what to do or serving them as
Right, being leaders, leadership roles. There was a time where they were not allowed to be in that leadership role over men.
Right.
So in 1972, so now we're in the 70s, women were allowed to command units that included men.
I bet you that was an eye-opener for them.
And in 94, now we're all the way to 94. President Bill Clinton, I'm missing some stuff, but he rescinded the rule risk, which essentially prevented women to serve in all direct ground combat roles. This allowed many more women to still engage in combat as aviators, personnel, and other roles. So then in 2013, the ban on women in combat would be lifted entirely. And that female service members would be allowed to serve in direct combat roles. But this wasn't put into action until 2015.
Good old Bill.
So this historic change opened up hundreds of thousands of jobs for women in the military and essentially ensured that as long as female service members completed the necessary training and requirements, they could now serve almost any role in the U.S. Armed Forces.
And we've already showed that we can totally surpass and totally get through that. I mean,
we still have the same type of training as the men. We still have to meet the same requirements. And then that way, women have the options to serve those roles. So women continue to make history in the military today, pushing boundaries and taking on more roles and more prestigious roles than ever before. So more than 300,000 women have served in Iraq and Afghanistan since 9/11. More than 9,000 have earned combat action badges. And today, women make up 16% of our nation's armed forces, serving in every branch of the U.S. military.
That's still really low.
It is low. But we did at one time had a 2% cap.
But oh my gosh, that still is so surprising, that percentage. Wow, I never thought of that.
So it's great strides.
It is. I mean, hey, we're here today. We're doing our thing. We'll still continue to do our thing.
Yes.
And I just
watch out, ceilings, because they will be broken.
That's right. No, barriers are coming. They have been coming down. I think, like every century, the female military, active duty. And even female veterans, because of what the female veterans in every community does. There's so many worldwide organizations out there that are helping, and they help the active duty military female veterans, those veteran organizations, because they're waiting for them to get out. Like for my daughter, I keep telling her I'm going to be here for you. She gets out at the end of the year of this year.
Wow.
I said, let mama know.
Right.
I got connections, And so we go both hand in hand, female veterans and female active duty.
How many years,
She
Kayla?
did 8.
All right.
She did 8. My baby Kayla Canigliaro. Shout out. Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Yes. So yeah, was some really good information. I really enjoyed me and Linda bringing this information to you guys. I really hope that you guys found some type of significant
and
intelligence to that, because
Yes.
I even learned
how far we have come, as women.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda, for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So please stand by for an important message.
Yes.
As history reveals, we encounter barriers, walls, and limits that put a place for what may have made sense to those in the past. But now we are faced with a challenge to break through. So when you are standing at the edge and it's time to take action, please remember the serenity prayer. God grant us the serenity of mind to accept that which cannot be changed, courage to change that which can be changed, and wisdom to know one from the other. And then break through those glass ceilings.
Hey, in my back.
In my back.
Pain,
Pain.
in my soul.
In my soul.
Oh no,
Oh, no.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Battle sisters.
Battle sisters.
Here for you.
Here for you.
True and through.
True and through.
Left, right, leo. Left, right, leo.